Fortnite fam? Welcome back to the Fortnite Champion Series. It's your boy Zeke, and joining us here on the analyst desk, we've got Reese, we've got Vivid, and in just a moment, we'll have some games. We just came on over from the games in EU, and my oh my, down to the wire after 6 matches. I don't know how much energy I'm going to have left, but I'm going to just put it all on the line.
I was going to say, I was like, those games were so good, and if they were in any way an indicator of what we're about to see today, we were in for an incredible 6 games. We had such good games yesterday on day 1, and we're continuing that off right here today with the next 6 games, picking up those top-tier teams. Who's going to be in the top 3, and who's going to have the Axe of Champions?
Very surprised to hear you say that, though, Zeke, considering, yesterday you took a little hiatus from us, a little break from us, so your energy should be here. But if your energy isn't here, I will replace the energy you're missing, because I personally am really, really excited to watch these last 6 final games play out.
I'm excited that you're excited, and I want to see the excitement from you, so we'll have to see how that happens. But Vivid, you know who else is excited? People inside Party Royale. That's right. What's going on, everybody? We're excited to be here with you. We'll be ready for games in just a moment. But of course, we got to talk about how we got here, the tournament format, the prizing, all that. And these gentlemen will help break it all down for you.
So, to get here, our teams have gone through 4 weeks. They first had the 3 weeks of qualifiers, which had 4 rounds in them each, and they battled them through to get the top 132 teams coming through into the semi-finals. From the semi-finals, we saw 32 comes through and qualify into the finals. And can't forget the one team that came through the reboot round, which was Zay, Saf, and Stretch, for picking up that big victory royale. So today, we are in day 2 of the finals, like I've already said. We played 6 games yesterday. The leaderboards have some points on them already. Some of these teams are above, some of these teams are below. So we've got 6 games today, and we're going to be all to play for. The teams in first will get the Axe of Champions between them all, and the top 3 will qualify through for next season's finals automatically as well. And obviously, there's prizing to go all the way down as well.
Yeah, that's one of the crazy things about that top 3 slot there, security for the next finals. But how are teams going to secure that top 3 slot? They're going to get first a victory royale and get 30 points, or they can grab second, 25 points, third, 20 points, and that will trickle all the way down to the 17th slot where you will grab 1 point. Now, also, elims are worth 2 points, which is a little bit new, as we've talked about a lot. And these elims, as they stack up, the points stack up as well, since they are worth an extra point during this FNCS. And again, we've talked about it a lot. That top 3 threshold there is very, very important, because the jump in points there is just too surmountable to avoid. The team's really got to shoot for that.
That's right, and of course, this being finals, there's prize money on the line. Here's a breakdown of all 7 regions. But of course, you know what these trios want. They want the Axe of Champions, an in-game pickaxe, unique, unlike any other. That anytime you roll through someone, they're going to say, you know what, that's an FNCS Trios Champion, baby. I need to get out of the way. And of course, this is a more specific breakdown of NA East, $150,000 to the first place trio. Vivid, it's not bad. It's not bad for a few hours of Fortnite.
That is not bad. 6 hours. Well, I mean, if you count in all the qualifying weeks, fine. It stacks up the hours, but nonetheless, $50,000 per person, not too shabby.
I was expecting a quip from Reese, and I'm disappointed, Reese.
Okay,
wake up, baby! It's finals time! No, we're moving on, because we gotta talk predictions,
I'd like some money,
gentlemen.
that's all.
We're talking predictions here as we get ready for the finals, the last 6 games from NA East before we crown FNCS Trios Champion. MDF, Degen, Agers, and Skittles, aka Skugga, if you see him in there. Now, these guys are coming in 3rd place after yesterday's performance, 141 points. Doing well overall, but we'll have to see how things shake out in this. Aussie Antics, Commandment, Scented, and Edgy. Now, Vivid, do you agree with this?
No, absolutely.
Oh!
I mean, it's a good pick. It's a good pick. They're doing pretty well. But my prediction of Bucky, Kanata, and Macwood, I'd love to point out that even though one of them didn't make it into one of the games yesterday, they actually ended with the best average placement of 8.83, and they're currently sitting in the 4th place position on the leaderboard, only trailing behind 1st place by about 32 points.
Okay. Let's put it this way. Yeah, they have the best average placement, but they are down on their average eliminations by a ton. My team right now is popping off on the average eliminations over the course of the weeks right now. You know what? Maybe they're not so far yesterday, but they're able to. They have that capability to do so, and I see these guys really popping off, and clearly Aussie agrees with me as well.
Yeah, they've shown promise, but not in finals like my trio has. Because I love the fact checking that because my trio actually has better average eliminations as of yesterday.
I noticed
in the
as
finals.
I was saying it. That's why I went through the qualifiers and the semis.
Making sure people know. Making sure.
Wow. Okay, so Vivid is bringing the heat. He's decided the finals is
it's
the day that I will come alive,
to.
that I won't sleep in, that I'll wake up early, I'll drink the caffeine, and I'll bring the hype. And you know what, Vivid? I respect that, sir. And I respect you. Now, guys, we're getting ready to get into these games. We got to talk about the things that kind of happened yesterday. Coming into today's 6 matches, we saw Day, Miro, and Reverse 2K. They were sitting in first with 165 points. That is a massive buffer coming into these next 6 games. But in EU, we saw Teak's trio come in that first place spot, but it never quite worked out. They never got that ball rolling in those last 6 matches where they really needed to. How do we feel about the top 3, how they might come into these next 6 games? Do you think they're ready? Are you ready?
So, on other regions, a lot of times, in particular EU, that first day, they see the teams stack up, and then after that, things completely change. However, if we compare this season to the last season's FNCS, 3 of our top 5 teams are still in the top 5 who were there last season as well. So we have Day, Miro, and Reverse in first. They were in first last season at this exact moment after the first day 2. We've also got Slacks, Acorn, and Jack who are in second, who were in 5th before. And we also have Commandment, Sended, and Edgy who are in 5th, who were in 3rd this time last season. So our top 5 is looking exactly the same. Now in EU, we saw Kamisei and Teak end up not really performing on day 2. But if history is anything to go by, last season, we saw Day, Miro, and Reverse in that first place slot after day 1. They held it all the way through, picking up the championship. Today, it's a mirror tournament. They're doing the same thing. Ooh. I think they may be able to keep that first place slot and keep the ball rolling, as long as they don't have any huge upsets.
Yeah, talking about mirrors there, I'd love to talk about their playstyle because they're playing the exact same way that they did last season. And the way that they play is they love those mid-ground layers in that endgame scenarios. Basically, what their goal is to let Reverse go ahead and lead the tarp, stay ahead, and while Miro and Day sit in the back, they find these angles on people and they grab these eliminations and these refreshes and basically just bring all these resources up to Reverse so that way Reverse can continue the tarp. And Reverse is very, very good at finding, where he needs to go and keep his trio alive with these really good tarps. And the reason why I want to mention that is because over the course of these weeks, we've seen a very contested higher ground by a lot of these teams, and also coming into these finals, there's a little bit of a contention on the low ground as well. So I'm not too confident in Commandment and Scented and Edgy's, ability to bring it back just because of how contested it is. But that mid-ground layer, it seems like they have it for free right now, and they are just mirroring last season, doing exactly what they did last season, and doing a great job of, just bringing it all together and find these elims, especially elims.
Especially, that's the thing I want to add here, right? So I've said this stat at the end of yesterday, and I was very, very excited about this. Miro alone, so take out the fact that he has 2 teammates, he has Reverse, he has Day as well. He has 27 eliminations by himself across 6 games. Now, if you actually look through the leaderboards when we saw them up, every other team except for 2 has less than 27 eliminations, meaning that Miro by himself has more eliminations than 30 teams that have played the 6 games yesterday. So, clearly what Vivid's pointing out, they're getting onto a good layer, and because they're opening that space, they're creating a ton of kind of angles, walls, edits for themselves. They have that great piece control on a relatively free layer, meaning they can look up, they can look down, they can look horizontally across, and really have free reign of whoever's around them. And because they own such a large amount of the retail there, it's free pickings for these guys who are very, very experienced fighters on this region. So this is why they're in the first place slot. And one of the things you said, Vivid, was like low ground's looking awfully contested, and we have Commandment, Scented, and Edgy who are really, we would say right now probably playing that low ground position the best, but they're being contested by 2 teams there right now. We have Illist's team who's trying to play that role, and we saw through their qualifier they were performing very, very well, but you're right, it is looking awfully contested on the low ground in East right now.
Yeah, and that's what I like about that mid-ground layer, because it's not just like one set location, right? Low ground is low ground, that's it. But mid-ground, there are several different layers, so as long as they find a good layer, there are several, to them, and you can find your own uncontested layer. But a trio that I want to talk about that towards the end of yesterday actually started to, pick it up a little bit and maybe find their groove is Clicks, Booga, and Bizzle. They absolutely dominated throughout the qualifying weeks and in their heat. And, yesterday, they didn't really perform up to that hype. However, towards the end of the day, though, they got a victory out and they played very, very well. So I'm excited to see if they, transfer over that groove that they found into today and maybe make a run for this top 5 slot, maybe even first if they do really, really well.
Yeah, there's around like 20-ish points, 30-ish points, sorry, between 8th till 5th, where they're at right now. So, definitely a margin they can close, no problem. We saw in their first game, very much so struggling with Storm Surge, which, is a little bit uncharacteristic because they have such good fighters of Clix and Bugha on this team. But we saw, reflectively, instantly, game 2, they came in and they were 1,000 above the first Storm Surge threshold. So it was almost like an instant fix. But the problem with that team was that they were consistently getting stuck in that 12th, 13th, 13th, 15th. That was kind of some of their match history on top of having the Victory Royale too. So despite the fact they were struggling with Storm Surge at the start, they often just committed to high ground way too much when zones started moving, used way too many materials. We saw in one of those games Clix go down back of zone, no mats after trying to take high ground, so leaving, it was Bizzle by himself. Yeah. He got a few points. Solo, I remember picking up some good eliminations in that game in particular. But still,
the one that he won, actually.
Yeah. The one that they won as well. There was one that he won as a solo, but then there was another game that they also ended up doing the same thing first moving too. So it's like, those hype plays and pick up the victory rounds, but obviously they didn't work too much because you've already said it. There's so many teams contesting the high ground.
Just so many trios, and all of them have one thing on their mind. Can we grasp the axe of champions? Can we hold on to this lead? Can we create a lead for ourselves? Can we close the gap? There's so much on these players' mind, but this is it. We have 6 matches ahead of us, and after 6 matches, we'll know who the next FNCS Trios Champions is from NA East. Fortnite fam, buckle up, because we about to go on a ride. We're jumping aboard the battle bus, so you know what time it is. We gotta hang out with our casters. It's Monster D-Face, it's Aussie Antics. Gentlemen, say hello.
Thank you, Zeke, and yeah, let's make sure the battle bus doesn't go off without us, because we are calling all of the action today, and we're actually continuing the action from yesterday. Let's not forget, this is a 2-day format. We'll be hopping into game number 7. Aussie, where we left off yesterday, we left off on a cliffhanger because it was looking like a runaway train for some, and all of a sudden teams have caught up, and now we got ourselves a competition.
Teams are caught up. We've got a big competition on our hand. We have Dame Mirror Reverse poised to potentially become the first players ever in NA East to get 2 times FNCS back to back. You can't do it in more dominant fashion than that. We've seen top tier trios stay together since last season. So many of them up there on the leaderboard. I'm so excited to see it, Monster. We have storylines developing. We have big names down on the leaderboard who need a phenomenal day 2 to catch up. But yeah, who's going to be able to take it out of the top? It's so close.
And that's the thing. There's no cutting corners here. It's time to put up and put it all on the line. Bugha, Bizzle, and Clix there, we talked about how they're all of a sudden uptrending. They pulled in a Victory Royale, had a struggle of a day. I think that was the biggest upset, though, I think, coming into this, because they were a fan favorite for all of us.
They were fan favorite for all of us. We also had Zate, Saf, and Stretch. They're coming out of the reboot round. Normally, that's not a team with really high expectations on them, but we know what that storyline is. If you follow NA East competitive scene at all, you know seeing Zate, Saf, and Stretch in the reboot round at all was a giant upset. They won it. The storyline was there. They switched their drop spot back to the Hydro Dam. They've got their RPG, but they're down on leaderboard right now. They're getting contested, and it's almost like that story we saw during the last FNCS at Doom's Domain, but I don't know. If any team can come back and have a legendary day 2, it's going to be that team. They know how to put victory hours on the board, but they're going to have to do it fast. We have 6 more games, and they need to make every single one count if they have any chance at this.
Yeah, and it's their legacy that's on the line here. We're talking about a trio, even as individuals, and their other individual performances have, I believe, finished top 5 in every other grand final or major event up until now. So now that we're looking at this final setting here, they have something to live up to now, right? They have something to live up for. Their win through the reboot round was celebrated through the community, because it wouldn't have been a finals for some if they didn't see Zate, Saf, and Stretch make it here. And now they're struggling, so I feel like that continuation, today's the day where they can do it, though. They're also a team that they're wild card, right? Known to switch up drop spots, known to do things out of the ordinary. So I'm with you on that. I want to see them step up. I want to see them try something different today.
Well, that's the thing. When you've got the caliber of NA East play as well, we've got 12 games on the board. So teams like Zate, who have put up multiple victory hours in FNCS finals before, they need to show up today, but they can really disrupt the storyline for other teams like Day and Miro and Reverse at the top of the leaderboard. It's not just eyes on that top 5. Any team can come out and surprise you. You were just talking about it then as well. We've got Chap and Zate, both players who have come top 10 in every FNCS final they've played. They're both outside the top 10 right now. Stretch had to win the reboot round to continue his legacy of making it to every single FNCS final ever. So Stretch continues legacy. He made it here, but Zay could potentially lose this one here. It would be a massive upset to not see them at least top 10.
Exactly just that. We have a lot to look forward to as the battle bus is now starting to kick up. Looks like we're all fueled in and we're ready to go ahead and hop on over to it. This is going to be game number 7 of 12, and we're going to be kicking it off here, and the world will start to begin to get populated. Other teams to look out for, of course, are our top 3s. DGen, Agers, Skittles. My pick to definitely do something big here. Slacks, Acorn, and Jock, though, the closest contenders for that first place throne, who at the moment is being sat on by the previous FNCS champions of Day, Miro, and Reverse 2K. So, Aussie, we are going to be in for a world of games and potential upsets and heartbreaks.
I mean, we really are. If you even look at the leaderboard right now, Slacks, Jack, and Acorn, they're on 147 points. We've got our first place, Day, Mirror, Universe on 165. Both of them have a victorial, and both of them have an average placement of exactly 9th. It's the eliminations that separate them right now. Day, Mirror, Universe, average elims of 7.5. Slacks, Jack, Acorn, 6.33. So we had Reese talking about there in the intro, the fact that Miro alone has more eliminations than 30 of the teams competing here today. So that performance right now is what's making the point difference, but that's not a lot. That's not what you want to rest on. You've got another team that's playing as consistently as you into the end game in a very, very placement heavy format. You've got to pick up the pace if you want to hold on to that lead, because it's going to shift instantly here today.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to make the comparison of Miro to like Hen's journey from EU. We just watched the EU Grand, the finals play out, right? And watched them take this all away. Hen as well, like really started to find his footing coming into the FNCS Invitationals, coming into these more recent big tournaments of DreamHack and whatnot. It's the same for Miro here. Miro really hit the space hard and running when these solo competitions started to spin up, and it was his solo season. He carried that into trios, and now he's continuing on his legacy here, building the story of Miro, and he's done it in such a short time frame, like such a short window. I feel like with every tournament now, once again setting the bar for himself higher and higher. Take a look here though. We have Knight, AV, and Shark here trying to hold down Pleasant Park. They're being contested. We haven't seen them show up as big as we'd like though.
No, they didn't show up in the way that we normally saw. Last FNCS, they were doing phenomenal right up until the finals. The finals was a bit shaky, a little bit unfortunate. They were dropping in that southwestern section of the map, that kind of shantytown logjam area. They decided that wasn't really working for them yesterday, where they were still going, and now they're going to be dropping at Pleasant Park. And we've seen a lot of contention at Pleasant Park across all the regions, but especially NA East. I don't think I've watched a single game of Fortnite this season where it hasn't been at least contested by one team. And it's a drop spot that's interesting because it doesn't have a lot of loot, and it looks like Nine Shark are making their way to the stealthy stronghold. I don't know if they know that maybe there's no team up here or a weaker team. Based on the battle bus, they would have been able to see. I just think they're trying to either get away from Silverback's team, or they're just trying to get a little bit of extra loot because they're a man down and they're not looking fantastic. This is the mental reset, right, Monster? You've had a night to sleep on it. You could have VOD reviewed the games, gone back and watched them, figure out the game plan. So this first game is massive. How do you change up what happened yesterday, or how do you find the same consistency, as it looks like Frist, Bully, and Osp are going to find the same consistency they did yesterday, winning yet again another spawn fight at Steamy Stacks, which means Chap, Dukes, and Threats are out of this one yet again.
That's so big for this trio right here, who's battling their way into that top 10. Let's not forget, if first is out of your reach, there is still top 3 on the line here, as Xset is going to rotate right up to the stealthy stronghold. When you look at their performance, Xset yesterday, bar for bar up against Divine's team, who's contesting them at Pleasant Park. Divine's trio was actually winning the drop over and over. So I like this idea to rotate out early, look for a different fight, maybe play an ambush strategy, something different, but it's already not working. They're down AV here. They're down a member, and we all know what happens. 2v3s are not easy battles to take by any means.
And the team they're pushing as well, Crumble, Nexi, and Mars. Yesterday, they started so strong. They had a 4 elimination 9th place, an 8 elimination 3rd place. That saw them, I believe, in 3rd overall after those 2 games. And then everything went downhill, Monster. A 31st place, a 17th, a 32nd, and a 32nd. So in their final 4 games, they got a single placement point. So they need to pick things back up here. They've shown they can do it. They've shown in those first 2 games they have the potential. We've been talking up Mars a lot as a player who just kind of plays the game differently to everyone else. He doesn't play scrims a lot. He plays tournaments and he plays arena. Obviously, if you guys have heard about it, over 300,000 arena points this season. So my man's a grinder, but because of that, he does play a little bit differently, and I want to see what they can bring to the table today, because when they get running, they have the ability to take out victory royales, but right now, the consistency isn't there. As we swap over to another team, our 2nd place team, who has had, I would argue, probably the best consistency, not just this weekend, they're in 2nd place, but almost all season. They have been phenomenal.
Yeah, they're just short of a championship title, and that's what they're fighting for right now. It's the pride, it's the reputation, it's just to say you have done it before. It's such a huge accolade to achieve in a pro player's career, and it's the only thing that should matter, honestly. I was going to say it's what matters most, but no, it's the only thing that should matter is taking home that 1st place spot when you're up here, because you're trying to prove you are one of the best of the best, and that's what Slacks and Acorn and Jack have done here up until now, especially Jack and Acorn. Their reputation, the rapport they've built with one another is, again, something to be looked up to, something to really be admired. Here's another team on the come-up, though. Teo, Tabney, and Chimp, dark horses to take this whole thing. They had a strong 2-game start, and then all of a sudden just hit a wall. And if you pay attention to social media, they were really leaning into the whole, the zones weren't something that they were comfortable with. It didn't just go in their way that time around. But I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's a good enough excuse for me. I think it's the pressure of a grand finals and these finals type settings, right? It's the final settings here that really make the difference for some of the new players.
I agree, it is. You've got to have game plans for every scenario. NA East is kind of always, prided for how good their practice scene is, how many games they run. They usually run 6 to 7 games almost every single day of the week, practicing against each other, using custom lobbies to try and get that practice. And if the zones don't go your way, you should know how to account for that. We've seen phenomenal performances from teams that also didn't get zones. Again, yesterday, Centered Edgy Commandment, perfect timing to shine eyes on them. Their victory out came from the game when it went far north into Craggy, and they are a Misty Meadows team. So they did the entire map rotate and managed to get the victory out. And look at the loot here. This is a team that's interesting. I'm not going to lie. I haven't forgotten, Vivid's comments there at the start. He was saying his pick's a little bit better than mine. I'm not going to disagree that his pick looks phenomenal. They're very close on the leaderboard, but Commandment, Edgy, and Centered started yesterday getting contested, which threw off their first games a little bit. They got decent points, but I think it really did kind of throw off their momentum. Now they're back to being uncontested. I really think we're going to see phenomenal things from this team, but they need to step up pretty soon. They're in that 5th place slot. They're over a victory royale down on points, or just around a victory royale. So you've got to imagine, even if they get that victory royale, that means Damir and Reverse have to get a 0-point game. So they've got to step up the pace here.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that they started to get their groove. They really did begin to pop off, pulling in the string of big games, 3rd, 1st, 7th, and then that last game, though, and this is the risk of being uncontested, Storm Surge was the biggest problem. They fell in 28th place, and that's early, guys. When you really look at it, that is one of the first teams to crumble right as the things are kicking off with the Storm Surge and really forcing players to fight one another. So you want the drop spot for free, but anything can happen.
That fight was at the hands of Zaitsaf and Stretch, member. They were getting emotional. They were getting upset. They came out of their drop at Hydro Dam very near Misty, and I think they were just looking for any team to lay the hurt down on. They found Centered Edgy Commandment. Zayt unleashed the RPG. They made it a full 3v3 battle that ended up Centered Edgy Commandment lost that one, and that was by far their worst point game. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's part of Fortnite as well. You got to know who's around. You got to know your rotates and who you're going to run into. And when Zaitsaf and Stretch are trying to put big points on the board, that is not a team you want to be near. As we see Jamper, Paper, and Nosh, a team that has been relatively quiet, I'd say, over this weekend and yesterday's Games Monster, out of the Coliseum, uncontested finally, so expecting to see some big things from them. They've got that middle map split, and I feel like they were close. They were always around those points. They just didn't get the big games they needed. They have a look at their last 3 games yesterday. A 7th place, a 5th place, and a 6th place. We know how close that is to that prestigious top 3 monster. You survive for 10, 15 more seconds. You're picking up 6 points for 3rd and 5 points for 2nd. That is massive.
Yeah, so big, those points here. And take a look at the quick stat. Acorn Shura was the only team with all 3 players in double-digit elims on day 1.
Like
so everyone
that.
really spreading out the support. I think coming into it, Acorn was actually the lead, right, as far as all the elims. He was really picking up, kind of carrying the weight. But yesterday seemed like things were a lot more dispersed between the few. And actually, when we talked about Acorn's pop-off in the heats, pop-off in the lead-up to in the qualifiers, it came down to actually Jack, who was on camera at that time. I remember here finding a string of elims. So, yeah, we're watching everyone come together. And this trio, I feel like, again, the last time they had a big chance of taking home a championship title, I think it was around the DreamHack setting just recently in that tournament, and they were contested, and they did not have a good time in it. It was, I believe so. It was up against Zate, Saf, and Stretch here too, so there's definitely a lot of bad blood there between the two because, you know, they go against each other in these settings. These are the best players. They're constantly meeting here in these final stages.
They fight a lot, and when you got a team that's been going Hydro Dam with Zate's team, Slurpee Swarms isn't too far away, and quite often they have eyes set on each other, even if it's just Storm Surge tags or full-blown engagements. But I'm noticing something interesting here, Monster, that I don't think we've seen once this weekend. Predator's team, I'm guessing they contested Zate, but all 6 of them are still alive. No one went down, so I saw that Zate had the RPG there, so definitely won the Hydro Dam fight as Stretch is going up here, gonna try and get a move on into Adam's team. Bread's inside the box as well. Stretch is playing aggressive, and this is how you know a team who's got the caliber to be up there on the leaderboard, but has found themselves down there after day 1. They need to play aggressive. They just can't go for a few decent games, Monster. They need big games, and big games come on the back of big eliminations. 2 points per elim here in this finals format, and that's what they're going to be trying to gun for here. They've already got what looks like, I think, 2 down. I think it's 1 player left here from this team, and it is Bread's up on top, trying to get away from 3 of the best players in NA East.
Yeah, but you and I both know how much risk is involved when you get too, invested in some of these fights. I look at them as emotional battles when they go the distance, right? And then you start to try and do it round after round. Anything can happen. Even yesterday on OCE, we saw plenty of teams that had to come all the way back and pull in a big set of games. And that
Yeah, definitely, especially in games that are this stacked as well. As you see, Saf takes some big damage. They're 711 above. They've got 4 points on the board. Yes, it's a 3v1, so, you know, you're tempted to try and go up there and really force that fight, but you coined it best there, Monster. Look at Saf and Zate's health. They just lost a lot of shield, a lot of health, a lot of utility to close out that last elimination. I think it might be worth it to clear that player out from above them, but here we see Day, Mirror, and Reverse, our first place team, looking like they're getting active here early. This mid-game fight against XMB, Leo, and Ved. You also see Uzi, Animal, and Cease behind this one. XMB and Leo are stuck in a really rough spot between 2 full trios. One trio of which where we see Damir and Reverse doing this a lot, Monster. We questioned it yesterday. They took a risky fight near risky reels. It ended up playing out fantastically for them, so just a different playstyle. They're happy to make these big boxes of hard mats and then really use that as a position on low ground to apply pressure on the teams around them and try to pick up those freebie eliminations. They didn't end up capitalizing on that one, but it's good Storm Surge damage. They're only 200 above, and I like it. It's not a desperation box fight for Surge. It's getting in a position of power, playing from the low ground, and then getting your shots out like this to get a free 2 points and then some extra loot. But as I say, free, Day goes down. Reverse and Mirror are going to drop back into the top, and this is why I love that they play it on the low ground, Monster, because they have so much room to work with and drop back into, so even if one of them does get picked up, they can get away from it, as it's Aegis, Skittles, and DJ, the same team that we saw back up this team yesterday with the same playstyle.
My, oh my, look at the teams here huddled up. It's DGen, Aegis, and Skittles, like you said, on the move. Cease there on the other side of things. X and B still up, trying to pull something together. I saw Kaz in the mix. There's so many trios here sitting on top of one another. And let's be honest, this is what Storm Surge does to the lobbies. It forces teams that would otherwise go center to have to wait on the edges for people to come into them so they can take these battles clean and steady. And here's another clean and steady fight happening right now. Scented Edgy are trying to get into this one alongside Commandment. They've actually broken up this trio into 2 different parts. Illust and Avery seems to be down a member.
Yeah, I mean, right now, this is interesting. There's 2 separate teams in this, but I think they're both missing a player right now as they try to find their way in, and Scented, Edgy, Commandment are playing this one aggressive. If you see someone up on the walls without builds around them, really just taking shots in, they are playing incredibly aggressive. As I try to get a grasp on what's going on here, so it is Aspect and Zunies is a duo right now, and we also know NPen's still there, so Edgy, Commandment, and Scented are pushing a full trio with another duo next to them this aggressively. Man, this is not something we're used to seeing from this team. They are good fighters, they are aggressive players, but not normally to this extent in the mid game. There's 70 players alive. We're below the Storm Surge threshold. This isn't a Storm Surge motivated fight. This is just how Censored Edgy Commandment want to play their games, apparently.
I like this, though. I like coming into day 2 strong, right? Showing like, hey, listen, we're already at the top. We're coming in with a different kind of push that no one is going to expect, especially the game 1 when players' nerves are at highest. So I think they're warmed up. I think they're fired up, and their gameplay's proven it. The way they're moving is really proving it. They look like they're operating very, very efficiently.
They are, as we see Damir and Averse get a really nice little house here. They can farm this one out, build this one out, maybe push through it, or sit inside. I think they're going to try and stay inside. They're close to the edge of third. They could go further center, but then they're going to have to refarm the trees. Anytime you can find yourself a house like this, it's just such a safe spot to set up in. Building out of wood right now, not switching it up for the hard mats, for the metal or the brick. Noticing that mid-game fight did cost Reverse a little bit. He's only got 222 of the brick. Needs to try and refarm some of that back, and here we go. Perfect spot to do it inside the basement of this house. Just making sure no one's lurking inside there. You never know. They're going to try and maybe refarm that material back up, but they're looking fantastic. This is a Dirty Dogs team that starts off. They've made it all the way to the other west side of the map early. They've got their Storm Surge tags, and right now I'm looking at 3 of the teams in the top 5 all so close together, Monster.
Yeah, gets very, very interesting. It's when those big teams start to get next to one another, because the box fights will eventually ensue. And, I look at it more as like a mosh pit. The pushing begins, and then all of a sudden the fight breaks out, right? Everything is big and the field opens up. So that's kind of what it's like when you have all the teams starting to get next to one another. It only takes a couple of gunshots in the air to start really getting things interesting, as Kanata's going to fall there in the feed. Bucky falls. Macwood falls. Oh my gosh, you might have just seen a full wipe unfold here. This from Crumble and his trio.
I'm just going to say, Vivid, I'm pretty sure that means all my team's got to do is pick up 6 more points. Could be above on the leaderboard. I'm not holding on to that one. I'm not salty that you called my team out. Just mentioning, just thought I might throw it in there. Team's now down, but that's an unfortunate start for Kanata, Macwood, and Bucky. They were some of the favorites coming into this. I definitely would have put them in my top 3 to pop off here today and get the victory. So seeing them go down early in Game 7 is scary, but we saw that yesterday as well, right, Monster?